Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir and I am just trying to sort the camera out. Okay, got this done. Thank you so much for joining in. It's been a few hectic weeks. Haven't been able to do the live streams as I have always wanted to do. And last week I was in Alberta for after a very long time. No, actually, first time, because just haven't been able to get that done. And my God, Alberta, it's so pretty. Uh, I wonder why I haven't done that before. So thank you to Capic for organizing that NCIC in that wonderful location of Lake Louise, where I was able to finally lay my eyes on that beauty. So if you are in Canada and if you still haven't made your way up to Lake Louise, you definitely have to get that done. You have to check that off your box, of your bucket list, if you want to call it. Very pretty, very scenic. The whole anything around Calgary looks extremely pretty. NCIC, very interesting. Met a lot of colleagues, met a lot of people, exchanged a lot of notes. Met Stephen Murrens, of course, did a live podcast with him. I'm sure a lot of you must have already seen that. Learnings, yes, plenty, but at the same point of time, insights, very valuable, those as well. One thing is for certain, the only thing that is constant with IRCC or with immigration in Canada is the change. And that's what is in store for us. At least that's what I think for the next several years to come, probably. Is immigration going anywhere? As a lot of people might want some of you to think and believe, immigration is not going anywhere. It's absolutely here to stay. Of all those trolls, well, it's unfortunate that you might want immigration to stop. It's not going to happen, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay the bills, right? So you want people who can pay the taxes. You want people to work. You want people to fill up the jobs for our aging population. So immigration is not going anywhere. Yes, what is required from the government is more structured and more efficient immigration system, whereby they can actually follow the mandate of the new prime minister, where he wants to attract the best talent in the world. In some ways, a lot of that best talent might already be in Canada, but is probably being ignored because of the high scores, because of the categories, because of we laying more emphasis on the language. I'm talking about French, of course, rather than the other factors. But again, those are all open for discussion. Obviously, there will always be views on both sides of the coin, and therefore it will always be debatable. At this point of time, the biggest question that most of you have or are wondering or are thinking, and that is about express entry draws. Is it going to continue? Has it stopped? Is there something wrong with express entry? Nothing's wrong with express entry. Express entry will continue beyond, except the fact that a lot of people still feel, for whatever reason, that express entry will stop. I'm not sure where that comes from. As far as express entry is concerned, it's a file management system. It's not even a program. So that's the first thing that people need to understand. It's not a program. It's not an immigration pathway. It's just a file management system. So if at all express entry goes away, which actually I want it to go away. The amount of glitches that the system has is unbelievable, and it's ancient. In the IT terms, of course, the way things are, and I definitely want it to go away. But at least at this point of time, there is nothing there. So express entry is here to stay for the time being. And whenever it will go, you would have another system that will replace express entry. The programs or the pathways that are there in the express entry are the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and Federal Skilled Trade categories. Federal Skilled Trade categories also has pretty much dwindled away, and I think that has largely because IRCC has now obviously got a category draw, and a lot of people are confused between the category draw and the federal skill trade categories. So those are not interchangeable; those are completely separate, completely different things. And the fact that you want to be eligible in federal skill trade categories doesn't make any sense, because those draws are just not happening. At least I haven't seen one in the last 3-4 years probably. So primarily now you have only Canadian experience class and federal skilled worker program. Federal skilled worker program is also pretty much at the back of the house, because uh, IRCC has made it very, very clear. The immigration levels plan have made it very, very clear that they want to concentrate only on candidates who are inside Canada. So in Canada focus is going to be the name of the game, and that pretty much rules out federal skilled worker program as well in its original format. The only way a person who's outside Canada, eligible under the federal skilled worker program, can now make their way to Canada would be either through the category draws or through a PNP program, which I'm not sure which PNP program would really add value there. But if there is a PNP program where if you can find an employer, if you can find a job offer from an employer who's willing to support you, then federal skilled worker program is for them as well. But other than that, people outside Canada, as they say never, and impossible is not the word I would want to use, but it's pretty close to that. So if you are outside Canada, if you do not have any background which is in French, which is making you eligible in a category draw, or if you do not have a job offer, if you do not have Canadian work experience, at this point of time, Canadian permanent residence pathways are pretty much shut doors. So if you are still talking to agents out there, still talking to consultants, lawyers out there who are trying to sell you a PR pathway in 6 months, then please don't do that. You will just be spending your money for absolutely nothing. Okay, so that's the current state of affairs. Now, what is a bit of a bother is the fact that thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of statuses, temporary residence statuses, are expiring this year. And if they are expiring this year, it basically means that those people will be out of status. Duh. And with IRCC not conducting the draws, it is obviously putting a lot of pressure. Now, a couple of things there. What happened is that IRCC, I mean, let's roll it back. So if you're losing your status, a lot of people, not all of it, but not all of you, but most of you are choosing to apply for a dummy extension. Now, dummy extension or fake extension, by the sense of the word itself, seems very scary. Oh, you're doing something fake. Oh, you're doing something wrong. Oh, it's illegal. Oh, it's misrepresentation. All that blah, 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 blah. You hear it on Reddit, you hear it on forums, you hear it in all those places, and they scare you away. Well, the term fake extension or dummy extension is, I do not know who coined that word, but that person should have been more generous with that language and probably made it something else and said, I don't know, pseudo extension or temporary extension or something of that sort, so that people would have had more relaxed understanding. Anyways, so this dummy extension or fake extension basically is a legal, I wouldn't call it a loophole, because it's a legal provision. IRCC, IRPA gives you this provision whereby if you are in Canada and if you have a valid status work permit, and if you make another work permit application, then you primarily go on an implied status. Implied status is legit, it's legal status. Now, where does the aspect of misrepresentation come? Misrepresentation aspect comes when you lie, when you withhold information, when you provide fraudulent documents. So if you make one of these applications, dummy extensions or whatever, and you choose the option, right? So you have certain questions to answer when you are preparing your application form, online application form. And of course, if you choose an incorrect option, then if you have a very, very rigid, strict officer who is like really, really trying to penalize you, might might want to question you that you have committed misrepresentation because you said you're applying for this, but you're not eligible for this. So why are you applying for this work permit extension? However, ever since January of 2024, people have been applying for dummy extensions, fake extensions. Nobody has ever been charged with misrepresentation. People have been doing it since Jan 2024 because December 2023 was the last that you could apply for legit postgraduate work permit extensions. However, I'm just backtracking here a bit. If you provide an explanation in your dummy extension application stating why you are applying and requesting for consideration from IRCC, then it's not misrepresentation because you are specifying, you're telling IRCC what you're trying to do. And technically, law is made in such a manner that time immemorial, ever since laws were created, humans, men, people would always find ways to work around with the law so that it would give advantage to people. And this is, again, the example of dummy extension. So IRCC is, of course, absolutely aware of what people are trying to do. IRCC is absolutely concerned about what people are trying to do in terms of dummy extensions and fake extensions. And obviously, as you now know, that the processing time for work permit applications is now more than 230 days, which is like 7-8 months now. And this is also then helping more people opt that route because, hey, if it's going to take 238 days and my work permit is expiring, I may as well gain additional period of time to work in Canada legit legally on an implied status for 238 days, right? Why won't you do that? But two things come out of this one. First one, 238 days is not set in stone, means it's an average processing time for a lot of applications, which could be complex in nature, which would need more time. So it's an average processing. Even now, some applications of work permit get processed in less than a month, and of course, some are taking almost a year. So that's how it is. But as far as dummy extensions are concerned, IRCC is aware of it, and Stephen Murrens shared a mini flashpoint document from IRCC where this aspect has already been discussed, spoken about by IRCC, and they are looking to create a triaging system whereby such applications where the person is not eligible to apply for that work permit in the first place are very quickly rejected and refused. And if they are refused quickly and efficiently, then obviously you will not have a very long period of time where you can work on an implied status, which will then discourage any more people to apply for such work permits. And hence, it makes sense. It's absolutely sensible to do that. But until such time, people will continue to apply for such dummy extensions, fake extensions, whatever you want to call it. No, I am not endorsing something of this sort, but I do want to clarify that at the end of the day, people will do what they need to do. In the sense of wanting to stay back. There are other options for you if you want to. You should obviously look for an employer who can provide you with an LMIA so you can apply for a closed work permit. You can change your status to a visitor to continue staying in Canada. Of course, you can't work. But other than that, at this point of time, there is nothing that says that dummy extensions lead to misrepresentation, unless, of course, you provide fraudulent documents, you mislead the officer, or you are providing or withholding any information which is contrary to what you should have been presenting in your application. So other than that, that's not the issues. But with all these hundreds of thousands of people who are now losing status in Canada, we are going to face issues. We are going to face issues in the sense like these individuals now don't have a choice, don't have an option. But first things first, a lot of people who are stuck at 490s and who are also individuals whose statuses are expiring in Canada, it may not be a bad idea to go back home. It might not be a bad idea to leave Canada so that you can explore options of foreign work experience. Strangely enough, and don't ask me why, and this is the reason why I want express entry system gone. I would want the whole system to be overhauled. The point system sometimes doesn't make sense. So for example, if you have 1 year of Canadian work experience and if you have 1 year of foreign work experience, you have more points. See, everything else remaining the same, you will have more points than for example, if you have only 2 years of Canadian experience. So for some reason, you get awarded more points for 1 year of foreign work experience versus the second year of Canadian experience. Second year of Canadian experience gives you 13 additional points. 1 year of foreign work experience with everything else remaining same with Canadian experience gives you 38 extra points. So, you have an advantage of 25 more points if you were to go and get your foreign work experience. Now, there is also a lot of talk about the fact of how much fraudulent activities are taking place within the immigration. But then fraud has been as old as anything in the world, right? I mean, people have been cheating, deceiving, lying to gain advantage or to get ahead of the queue. That is nothing new. Of course, therefore, the enforcement agencies or the regulatory bodies or the institutions that are supposed to enforce those actions should be more proactive, and therefore IRCC has to be a bit ahead of the curve in order to avoid and curb this kind of fraud. And I'm referring to the foreign work experience. Now, obviously, earlier we spoke about the LMIAs and the job offers, and we all had this notion that if you remove the job offer points and if you remove the LMIA points, the CRS score pool average will drop, will plummet, because we all thought that almost everybody in the express entry pool will have an fake job offer or a fake LMIA. As in, when we are saying fake, means the one that they have obtained fraudulently, as in they have purchased it or they have bought it. So it wasn't so, right? When eventually IRCC has removed the job offer points, we realized that the pool has only seen a difference of about 20-25% average drop in the scores on the high range. I'm talking about 500 plus, and that didn't really help, or that didn't really serve the purpose, the larger purpose as we speak. Now, the next one that is bothering a lot of you out there is the foreign work experience. And rightly so, because on a day-to-day basis, I come across so many instances, so many individuals where I can tell you blatantly that those documents are not genuine, or those work experiences are not genuine. But it's not me who can make a decision, right? So it's IRCC. And I'm surprised how IRCC, like, for example, if me, a small time, tiny, weeny consultant with very, very limited knowledge and very limited resources, can look at a document and say that this is not genuine. It's logical. This cannot be genuine. Then how does IRCC let that pass? Why is it that those guys with so much of resources, technology, experience, reference points, database of such things, and all that training in the world are not able to say the same thing when they look at it? But anyways, it's for them to do what needs to be done. And foreign work experience at this point of time is a concern. But then again, that would like be throwing the baby with the bathwater, right? If you do not value the foreign work experience, it takes away the diversity from the whole express entry pool. Obviously, Canada is not all encompassing, right? It does not give you everything. It's not that all kinds of experiences exist in Canada or they are as relevant. And therefore, when you do award points for diversity within the foreign work experiences, you are doing the right thing by encouraging more and more different people from different backgrounds, from different work experience to come to Canada, and so that they can use and transfer that work experience and transition that work experience and for the benefit of the Canadian economy by and large. So if you do try to curtail the foreign work experience, then the genuine ones are losing out, because, mind you, as much as there is fraud, many more are actually genuine applicants. They're all working for IT firms, manufacturing firms, automotive industries, healthcare industries, construction, you name it. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So by and large, where does it stop, right? So you cannot say LMIAs were fake, so remove the points, but they did. Then you cannot say work experiences, foreign work experiences are fake, so remove those points. It doesn't make sense. Then you cannot say, hey, a lot of people in Canada are also using fake Canadian payroll, or they are actually using fake Canadian payrolls whereby they don't have a job, they're not working, but they pay some unscrupulous employer some money, and the employer then runs a fake payroll for them. And then, so they should remove the Canadian work experience points as well. Then we will talk about the diploma mills, right, where the students are not really going to the college, but they're still getting the diplomas or the certificates. So remove the education points as well, and then remove the foreign education points. So where does it stop, right? I mean, that way. And then we will all come down to birth certificates, that the age of people is not true as well. So that's what I'm saying. Where does it all stop? And again, it all falls down on the enforcing or the enforcement agencies to sort of curtail and curb these kind of frauds. So, and the punishment should be more severe, in my opinion. And the reason for that is, if your enforcement is stricter, if your punishments are or the penalties are severe, then that is when you will make a difference. That's when you make a change, because then the people who want to be doing this will be thinking again and again, thinking over and over again that should they do it? Is it worth it? Can they do something like this? And will they get away with it? And what are the chances? What are the risks? That's where it makes a difference. For example, in US immigration, if you commit fraud or misrepresentation, then you can have a lifetime ban. In Canada, that ban is only for 5 years. So while 5 years is a huge deterrent, it probably is, or rather, at least the way it looks like, it's not deterrent enough. In Canada, if you commit fraud, you can still be in Canada. Why are people not being thrown out of the country? Why are they not just being handcuffed and put on the first flight out? So these are the things which continue to plague the whole corruption and the immigration system. And I'm hoping at some point of time, our new immigration minister, Lena Diab, will come and create, or rather make that change or initiate that change that we're all looking forward to. Until such time, express entry, as I was saying to you earlier, will continue. Express entry system will continue, at least in the near future. There are some videos online which is talking about changes to express entry. No, there are no changes at this point of time to the express entry. We do anticipate that IRCC at some point of time would want to overhaul the system. When I'm saying overhaul, I mean they would want to redistribute the points. But again, that's not an easy thing to do, because the point system, the express entry, the whole immigration system is set in the Canadian immigration law. And for you to be making any changes, you have to be making changes to the law, which is constitutional, and therefore would need changes in the parliament and the passing of the bills, which again all takes time. And therefore, it's not going to happen that soon, that quickly. So therefore, please rest assured, express entry remains the same the way it is. And while we all wish for changes, at this point of time, there is nothing in the pipeline. So you can just rest assured about that one. Other than that, the much bigger elephant in the room is the PNPs. Now, PNPs have impacted everybody, and that is another reason why frustrations are really, really running high. A lot of people planned, strategized as per the availability of the PNP programs, which is quite sensible, which was the right thing to do. They identified a PNP program, they moved to the province, they studied in the province, they worked in the province, they found the employer was willing to support them, and bang, PNP program is closed, right? Or PNP program will no longer accept in that particular stream. New Brunswick Student Connection stream, very good example. British Columbia postgraduate stream, very good example. Alberta Tech Pilot, Alberta Accelerated Tech Pilot, another example. I could go on and on and on. Of course, Saskatchewan's job approval letters, another one. So with each province, there are so many of these programs for which people have prepared, planned, and then it just sort of fell flat on their face, and now they are tough out of luck. What do you do? I don't have the answer in the sense as to what do you do, because it's not about what you can do immediately. It's like your statuses are expiring, your work permits are expiring. You can't stay in Canada as a visitor forever. Who's going to pay the bills? You can't work if you're a visitor. So what do you do? Again, the situation is back to the point that it may not be your end goal. Maybe there are other things, better things for you waiting outside. And I know it sounds a very loser kind of a statement to make, but there might be better things waiting for you out there. That's all I can tell you. Because in the current state of things, don't expect changes anytime soon. Don't expect PNP programs to suddenly open the doors and start accepting people just the way they were accepting people otherwise earlier. Don't expect suddenly tomorrow there will be a new TR to PR. I mean, even today, people are asking me, will there be a TR to PR again? No, TR to PR is not coming again. So don't expect any easy pathways to open up today or tomorrow or next week or a month or 2 or 6 months later. It's not happening. On the contrary, the immigration is going to continue to be difficult. Why? Because the new government has been elected on the same promise that they would reduce immigration, or at least maintain the current levels, or there won't be any rampant increase in the immigration. It's funny, right? Because Canada does need immigration. At the same point of time, it has to be more efficient, more structured. It has to be curtailed at this point of time, because over the last few years, there was a rampant increase in that number of temporary residents in Canada. And of course, the permanent residents numbers also went up by percentage points to the fact that we are now, or rather over the last year or so, we were more than 1% of the total population was being brought into Canada as permanent residents, which started raising the alarm bells. But then there is also a Century initiative, which is a completely different subject altogether, but then that's there as well. The aim or the effort or the attempt to reduce the temporary residents is directly going to impact the reduction, or rather definitely going to impact the permanent resident numbers as well. The permanent resident numbers, as you all know, for this year is 395,000, reducing to up to 365,000 over the next 3 years. Do I see that number going up? I know Stephen Mullins was, when we were speaking to him a week or so earlier, I'm not sure if you've seen that podcast, but please do. And in that, he was very optimistic, and he thought that the numbers will go up or can go up. I am not at this point. I mean, though I'm forever hopeful, I'm not that optimistic at this point of time. And it's only that it's a newly elected government. I know our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, would want to show himself to be different than our ex-Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And he would want to sort of send out that message that he is trying to do everything in the interests of the Canadian public, which at this point of time does not favor immigration. So I don't expect any rampant increase or changes that will increase immigration in the near future. That being said, what happened with the PNP programs was very strange, right? Their quotas was cut into half, 50% slashed. Will that go up? Now, that is something which only the Immigration Minister, Lena Diab, can answer. I have no idea on that aspect. And that is something we'll have to wait and watch. Because with Lena Diab, she is a seasoned politician. She has been immigration minister in Nova Scotia. So she understands immigration. She's also a lawyer, so she understands law. And she has been very pragmatic in her approach towards the immigration aspects. She did create new streams within the Nova Scotia immigration. So the experience is there, the background is there, the understanding is there. Okay, and she herself comes from an immigrant family. So all those factors are pretty relevant, and they're all there. But it's only time which will tell us what she chooses to do as far as immigration is concerned. But I would like to see provinces getting a better say in the selection of the people that they would want to bring into their provinces. That is something which is definitely required. And I would like to see PNPs getting their quotas up back to where they were, at least, if not increased. So that is something which, again, as I said, time will tell. A lot of you have been asking about Ontario's program, and no, there is no direct confirmation or answer from Ontario. However, given what has happened with the other provinces, for example, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, where everybody's quotas were slashed by 50%, I will have to assume that the reason why Ontario hasn't started their programs is because last year they did send out lots and lots of invitations. And towards the end of the year, most people were not declining Ontario's invitation, but rather accepting it. Because even last year, the express entry scores were quite high. People realized that it's stupid to decline Ontario's invitation, rather, they should take it in. And therefore, more and more and more people actually did complete their applications with Ontario versus earlier when people used to decline or people would wait to get their express entry ITAs and not go with Ontario ITAs. So there are still applications in process for Ontario. Those were submitted somewhere in last year in August, September, even earlier. A lot of people are currently in DIP stage, DIP decision in progress stage in Ontario. So their processing times have really, really increased. And I believe the reason why they are holding back on their program for this year is because of the number of applications they have in their inventory. So until they can clear them, or until they have an idea how many they can clear and how many they will actually process for nomination, I think they are holding back their quotas. Because if every province's quotas for this year were cut into half, were slashed into half, it is obviously possible that Ontario's quotas were also slashed at least by 50%. That would mean that Ontario would have a quota of only 10,000. And if it is only 10,000, I'm absolutely certain of those 10,000, most of those the nominations will very easily go to people who are already in the 2024 inventory. And therefore, this is the reason why Ontario is holding back. Not only that, from my understanding of my discussion with a few people who are more knowledgeable with these aspects, I understand that Ontario may also be looking to change the format of some of their programs. Now, if that is the case, then Ontario will want to first make sure that they have everything sorted out, all their guidelines, all their program guides in order before they can release that information and before they can come out with their programs. So stay tuned. I hope once Ontario does finalize and issue out their quotas and nominations for this year, they will come back. And as much it's ironical. I want to say I am forever hopeful, but I am not very optimistic at the same time. It doesn't sound very, very positive, but we also have to be realistic about this whole situation. So don't expect too much from Ontario this year. Don't expect the same kind of programs and invitations and draws from Ontario. I know a lot of you are counting on the human capital priority stream. A lot of you are counting on the skilled trades stream. A lot of you are counting on the master's graduate and the international student stream and on all the other streams that Ontario has. And I'm sure a lot of people have always been able to take advantage of that. But yeah, at this point of time, I think Ontario, you'll also have to take it with a pinch of salt. And if you have any other options, please exercise them. Wow. Okay. We have gone on and on and on for all this while, and we haven't even started our weekly roundup. Let's go with that one. Express entry draw summary. Now, this is something which I wanted to talk to you about earlier, but I haven't been able to get around with this one. Now, last year in 2024, with express entry draws, total number of invitations that were issued were 98,903. A big number, but then it was less than 2023. In 2023, they issued about 110,000 invitations. So this was already a smaller number, a smaller number than the previous year, almost by about 12,000. This year, in 2025, they have already issued 33,940 invitations. Out of those 33,940, 18,500 have been issued for Francophone category alone. That's a huge number. Now, I know that there is a big push from the government to encourage Francophone targets. For this year, it's about 8%, which by itself is quite large. Now, 8% of the total new immigrants would go towards Francophone, but you have to understand all that 8% is not targeting towards from express entry or from the federal high skill programs. Those 8% will be spread out across different categories of the immigration streams that we have. However, express entry will continue to be a big one, because we have a separate category in express entry, and 18,500 invitations being issued. That's pretty big. And the last draw was pretty low as well, right? 379, was it? I don't remember the number anymore. But yeah, the last express entry draw for Francophone was quite low, which has then encouraged so many institutions now promoting language courses. And some of them are ridiculous when they are saying that we will guarantee you that you will get CLB5 in 2 months. We will guarantee you. How are you guaranteeing? How can you guarantee somebody's aptitude towards language? How can you guarantee somebody will learn a new language from scratch, be able to score CLB5, pass an exam? How do you guarantee all that? So yeah, beware of such institutions who provide these kind of guarantees that they will train you in 2 months and 4 months and 6 months to get to a CLB5, CLB7, etc., etc. So please know your own aptitude, understand your own aptitude, so that you will then be able to opt for these options if you wish to. But French continues to be a great option. If you're still on the fence about it, please don't be. French is going to be a priority, rather, from exact words of IRCC, exact hot priority. That's the words those were used in our recent NCIC. And yeah, so please, if you are looking to add French, please do that. Now, if you look at this screen, it shows that in 2024, we had 15,483 ITAs that were given out only for PNPs. Okay, this year the number of ITAs given out for PNPs is 4,590, which tells you that roughly 28,000 ITAs this year have been given out for the federal high skilled programs, right? Your Canadian experience class, your education category, Francophone category, and the healthcare category. Then that leaves us, or that brings us to the next question: when will the draw happen for trade? When will the draw happen for STEM? When will the draw happen for food and agriculture? When will the draw happen for, or will the draw happen again for trades and education and healthcare? Well, the answer to all these questions is I don't know. I wish I had an inside scoop from IRCC to understand when the draws are going to happen. I wish I knew that, but I don't. Therefore, your speculation, mine, is pretty much the same. We are all expecting that the draws will continue. And if you go with the legacy understanding of how IRCC conducts the draws, I anticipate that the next draw, which should be, fingers are crossed, next week, it should be a Canadian experience class draws, because we have had 2 draws of categories last week. We did also have, sorry, not last week, the week before that, we did have a Canadian experience class draw last week, which was a ridiculous number of 500. It just did not make sense as to what they were trying to do, except the fact that they were just trying to test the system, and that's what they did. And I'm going to be hoping that that is exactly what they were trying to do, testing the system. And with that, the hope is that next week would be a Canadian experience class draw. This time, probably with a regular draw size of 3,500 to 4,000 ITAs, so that we can then see the CRS score come down to a respectable 510s or 520s. I think probably, depending on the number of ITAs, that's what will decide what the scores are going to be. But will there be another healthcare draw? In my understanding, yes. Will there be another education draw? Yes. Could be of a similar number, could be of a bigger number. We're still waiting to get the ATIP notes, which will give us the understanding of what is the percentage distribution for each of the categories, which can give us a better insight and therefore help you understand which ones would get invited when. Express entry pool distribution as of 13th of May shows 22,435 people above the score of 501. I mean, we are back to square one. This was also a number not too long back, with people who are when the LMIA points were still around, right? The only difference now is that between one draw to another draw, the number of individuals who get added into the pool with 501 plus is not as high as it used to be earlier. So that's the only difference. Now it's about 1,000 to 1,300, 400 people between two draws who get added with score 500, 1 plus. Earlier it was about 2,500. So you have a reduction of about 40% of the numbers who are getting added with 501. So that's the big difference. But other than that, with the pool breakdown, we are back to the same or similar number that we were at with when the points were still there for the job offer. So I'm not sure how much of a difference that made. Now we need to see IRCC's intent in really making a difference. Screen's washing out. Okay. Yeah. Now we want to see IRCC's intent in making sure that that they really are serious about bringing the scores down. And the only way that will happen is if at all they will choose to conduct large size draws, big size draws, and that is where the difference will happen. I will need to do this. My screen was getting washed out. Right, so that's what we have in terms of the pool breakdown. Let's talk about the PNP draws. There were a few this week. Alberta finally did wake up and they did conduct their draws. Of course, as you already know, Alberta has announced that they have a restricted quota for this year. They will not be conducting too many draws. They did conduct draws and they invited 125 candidates on the 13th of May under the Alberta Opportunity Stream with a very high score of 76. Trust me, it's not, when I'm saying high, it's really, really high. 76 is not low by any standards as far as the Alberta streams are concerned. And they also invited 33 candidates in the tourism and hospitality stream with a cutoff of about 72. So a total of 158 invitations issued, which is, I mean, at least they're keeping it moving. This year, in 2025, they have issued a total of 1,283 invitations. The total number of nominations still available with Alberta is 2,798, but the applications that are in the processing queue that they have is 3,068, and their pool total number is 58,204. So you can imagine if there is a pool of 58,204 to Alberta, in Alberta, means there are these number of individuals who are already eligible, who have been waiting, who are all lining up to get their nominations or wanting to get their nominations. And of course, there are many thousand more who are getting ready, who will be completing their work experience or their education, etc. So what's going to happen to these 58,000 people? Because the number of nominations remaining for this year is only 2,700. There are already 3,000 applications in the queue. So basically, if you look at the math here, there is only room for about 300 in Alberta for the entire 2025, whereas the number of people that are there in the pool is 58,000. 58,000 versus 300. That tells you the state of the current, that tells you the current state of Canadian immigration and what you can look at. But this is also the situation and state in all provinces, whether you're looking at Saskatchewan, you're looking at Manitoba, you're looking at British Columbia, or any of the Atlantic provinces, or for that matter, even in Ontario. Newfoundland and Labrador issued 320, at least they issued a large number of invitations. They issued 328 invitations through their new expression of interest system, and 281 were sent to the Newfoundland and Labrador's PNP program, and 47 were sent to the AIP. Now AIP also they are inviting through the draws. The province, Newfoundland and Labrador's immigration allocation is 2,525, which has gone up from by 1,000. And because they were willing to accept Mark Miller's terms at an earlier date, and therefore, but this 2,525 includes their AIP, Atlantic Immigration Program slots as well. In the PNP updates, British Columbia decided to bring in more nurses, thankfully, with with the nurses who could transition and had transferable certifications and licensing. So primarily they were targeting the American nurses, and apparently they have got a good response, and they have more than 100 nurses who have registered. So that's pretty cool. In other news, we have seen big drop. I'm saying big drop because as if it would have been otherwise. So there's a big drop in study permits for Indian students. Somehow, whenever we say Indian students, and when we say Indian, and when we say immigration in Canada, somehow they make news, they make headlines. Anyways, in this case, 31% fewer study permits were issued to the Indian students in Q1 in 2025, which is down to 30,000 approvals rather than 44,000 from the previous quarter. The total international student intake has also fallen down from 121,000 the previous year to now 96,000. So that's a big drop. But then that is exactly what IRCC is aiming for. That is exactly what Canadian government is aiming for, a more restricted Canadian temporary resident numbers, and they will continue to enforce that number. And as if this is a shock, Calgary restaurant owners were found guilty by the court of LMIA fraud. I mean, is this even a shock? Don't we already know how many employers commit this kind of a fraud because they are charging money, they are taking money for buying and selling of LMIAs, and even abusing and harassing the employees? There is physical harassment, and in some shocking cases, there is sexual harassment of their employees as well. I just wish more and more and more employees would come up or come forward and would actually report these instances. In this case, these three employees were brave. I mean, at least they were not deterred by the threats of the employer, and they actually filed a case against the employer by proving that the employer did charge them $24,000, which, to be very honest, is pretty cheap given the Canadian market rates for the LMIA. So these employers charged them $24,000 each for the LMIA processing, and these guys eventually left the job, applied for vulnerable open work permits, and then went to ESTC, filed a complaint, went to the Calgary police, filed a complaint, and eventually this case landed up in the court. And obviously the Calgary restaurant owners, gave all kinds of explanation, saying that the money that they charged was not for the LMIA, but because these people had taken loans and these people had to pay rent and for their other costs. Obviously, the judge threw it out and said, no, the employers are lying, and they actually did charge the individuals for the money. So I haven't heard of what was the sentence yet. The fact that they were convicted is good, but I haven't seen what they were penalized. Now, you see, these are the kind of employers you want to see a very harsh penalty for. They should be penalized. Penalize them to a very large financial amount. Penalize them for some jail term. Now, that is what will create deterrence, right? Then the other employers would think twice before they would do the same thing. But when you let these guys get away with very small penalties, then that tells the other employers that, hey, even if you get caught, you will just pay a small penalty and you will get away with it. And that's where the problem is. We need to see more stricter, harsher penalties on these kind of individuals so that there is a deterrent. There is a process where people would think twice. And I'm hoping to see that. Canada is headed for a recession, says a TD Bank economist. And apparently more than 100,000 job losses are looming. Again, this is a very grim outlook. And the trade tariffs that have been imposed by the US and the slowing immigration are compounding pressures, particularly in Ontario. And so not a good outlook, not a very healthy picture out there. But let's see how this one plays out. IRCC's processing delays are worsening for temporary residents. Now, I sometimes feel that this is being done deliberately. IRCC has approval of $730 million for technological advancements. They have used IBM, they have used Accenture, they have used, I think, almost all big tech firms to develop their systems, to design their systems, to maintain their systems. And yet, when you have all these IT techies, people who are no longer included in the STEM categories or IRCC's priority, making all these smart remarks, right? That IRCC doesn't have tech people or whatever. It's not IRCC not having tech people. It's all these companies that, all these big tech firms who IRCC is using, who are not delivering what they should be delivering. So I do not know. Maybe the joke's back on them in such situation, because IRCC has contracted these companies to perform their maintenance work, their development work, and yet we have these issues where the delays continue to go on and on and on. The systems continue to crash, the system continues to glitch, but no explanation of why the work permit extensions are now taking 238 days on an average. Study permit extensions are taking 236 days. Visit visa records or visitor records or visit visa extensions are taking 161 days. I mean, why? Why are we taking? Apparently, we are a first world country. Apparently, we are a rich country. Apparently, we have a lot of budgets to sort of allocate to technology and advancements and processes. And yet, we cannot process an extension application for 8-9 months. Amazing. I love it. Now, obviously, they are saying, or rather, people are saying, or whoever is saying it, saying that there was 3,300 IRCC job cuts earlier this year, but that is incorrect statement. 3,300 jobs were not cut immediately. 3,300 jobs are to be cut over a span of 3 years. That's the first thing. Secondly, the reason why 3,300 jobs were to be culled was because IRCC had stopped certain business streams. For example, they stopped the Ukrainian visas, right? So more than 1 million people had applied for the Ukrainian visas when that was being accepted. They are no longer being processed. So all those IRCC officers who were working in the Ukrainian visa department now been moved. So you don't need so many people. Also, IRCC has already said they will be reducing the number of study permit intakes. They are no longer processing as many spouse open work permits. They are also cutting down on certain other factors. So when you are cutting down on all these, your intakes are going to be lower. Then automatically you don't need that many employees. And when you don't need that many employees, obviously they're trying to let go of some because they overhired earlier a couple of years back when they were trying to catch up with their backlogs. At one point of time, Sean Fraser had come and said that they had 60% more staff handling express entry alone, 60% more. So obviously at some point of time, this number had to be balanced. So at least I don't believe that this job cuts is the reason why the processing delays are happening. It has to be something else. And if it is really job cuts, then probably they have to rethink this job cut and not do these job cuts and probably hire more people, or maybe train better, or maybe even transfer or transition better, or have a better system in place, because this is a ridiculous way of saying that we can't process applications fast enough. Imagine just an extension application, you are taking 238 days. What are you ever going to do with yourself? Judicial review window is now 75 days. Now, obviously, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, if you get your applications refused and if you feel there is IRCC is at the wrong because they just did not do the right job, or they did not handle your application correctly, well, then you can opt for a judicial review using an immigration lawyer. Now, judicial review process requires that if you are inside Canada, you must submit your application for leave for the judicial review within 15 days of your decision. And if you are outside Canada, and your decision was for an application outside Canada, then you have 60 days to make an application for leave for judicial review. Now, after you have made the application for leave, you used to have 30 days to perfect your application, as in to prepare your submissions, to prepare your documentation, to submit to the court. That number from 30 days has increased to 75 days, which gives you much more time to prepare your application, to perfect your application, or your submissions rather. But this is not being done because they want to give you more time. This is being done because the courts are flooded. They are backlogged into this, all these judicial review cases that are flowing through because of the number of refusals, because of the number of intakes. So you see how it is all backtracking. And if only IRCC was giving better responses to people as to why their applications are being refused in a more structured manner, a lot of them might not even go for judicial review. So yeah, it all falls back as to how the whole system is being managed. Labor market sends mixed signals after the April 2025 job report. Again, it ties in with the fact of how many jobs, though being created, it is still an overall unemployment rate of 6.9% in April. Not a very good look there. Immigration cuts threaten Atlantic Canada's hospitality sector. Uh, the hospitality industry in Atlantic Canada, I mean, as if like they're just waking up, right? Atlantic Canada is now waking up to the fact that once all these international students will go away, because eventually at some point of time people will get fed up, they will not want to continue being in Canada when there is no PR pathway. Some will resort to some very extreme measure, but most will eventually get fed up and leave. And then they will realize that they don't have enough people to do all these jobs that they thought Canadians can do, because Canadians don't want to do them, though they say they want to do it. And they are all cribbing that there is an increase in immigration, and that the immigrants are taking away their job. But that's the problem, is that they don't want to do those jobs in the first place. And they're also saying that because of the immigrants, the pay rates are very low. Well, then at those rates, if you don't want to do the job, then you need to find somebody else to do the job. And if you expect higher salaries for those jobs, then you yourself as a consumer are going to pay more for the same services. I guess people will wake up to that realization eventually, to understand that Canada, though being a very, very, very large country, second largest in the world, has a very, very, very small population, which doesn't help in the whole economic perspective. So, and anyway, until 2027, Ottawa is targeting fewer than 5% temporary residents. And this would basically mean that not only restaurants and hospitality sector, but manufacturing industries, the agriculture industries, the farming industries, they will all start facing labor shortages. Now, this was another thing that caught the eye, and this was that international students were making way to the food banks, which they shouldn't be, because international students, when they come to Canada, they have to show that they have sufficient funds, they have sufficient finances to pay for their tuition fees and living expenses. Yet, because of some unscrupulous individuals who make all these kind of videos, and they say that international students can go to the food banks or should go to the food banks and save a lot of money, that has led to a very false narrative, where international students take it for granted that when you want to get free groceries, you can go to the food bank, which is not the way to look at it. You, as an international student, you're coming to Canada, you should have sufficient funds, money available with you to pay for your own living expenses. Plus, you are allowed to work 24 hours a week so that you can pay for living expenses. Plus, you can also gain some Canadian experience, exposure to the labor market. But that doesn't mean you should then rely on food banks for your living costs, for your groceries, because food banks are not meant to feed international students. They are meant to feed the needies, the homeless, the poor, the people who really, really need, who rely on the food bank because they just are in that state. But by the students opting to go to the food banks, and I'm not saying all students do that, don't jump on me. I'm saying some of the international students who are being lured into thinking that this is a free food option, please don't do that. I'm not saying that if you're really in a desperate need because of the circumstances, then don't use. Of course, use, because that's the reason food banks are there. But don't take that as an option of saving money, because it is creating a problem for others who really need that food bank. So, and again, you're only creating a much more negative impression of the whole international student community at large. So for people who are doing it just to save money, this is a bad move, guys. Right. This one is another. Okay, let's talk about this one. I didn't make a small video. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this. This is about spouse accompanying, not accompanying on your PR applications. Now, this one is a big one because Procedural fairness letters are flowing in. Even in some cases, applications are being refused because individuals chose to show their spouse as not accompanying. And the reason that they gave is that they're doing it because they want to increase the CRS score. Now, there has been lots of back and forth with IRCC on this fact that can individuals show their spouses as unaccompanying, and IRCC, even if the spouse is in Canada. And IRCC has confirmed that yes, as an individual, you are within your rights to show that your spouse is not accompanying you if you have genuine reasons. So you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have your spouse in Canada, working in Canada, you applying for their extensions of work permit, and yet when it comes to applying for their PR, because you want to game the system, you want to take advantage of the points, you show that my spouse is not accompanying because I want to increase my CRS points. Earlier, IRCC was okay with it because it wasn't a very big deal. There were not too many people who were opting for this, and they would let it slide through. But recently, this has become a very, very big issue, apparently. And for people who are using this option just to increase their points, IRCC is saying that this is intentional manipulation of the express entry system, and therefore it is being seen as intentional misrepresentation. So please, please be very, very careful of this. And to reiterate, if your spouse is in Canada and if your spouse is unaccompanying you, which is absolutely fine, you are within your rights. And I'm sure one of these days, one of these applications will make their way to the federal court. And I'm sure we will have a judicial review and a case law after the decision from the court. But until such time, if you're trying to do this, please be aware that only in a genuine case where your spouse cannot accompany you because there are reasons, not that you are increasing your points, that is a reason. So don't use that as a reason. Have a genuine reason. Have a reason which you can substantiate by way of explanation, by way of documentation if needed, and then you wouldn't have this issue. But I mean, we have handled countless applications of individuals where their spouses were not accompanying. But then there are reasons why the spouse is not accompanying. And we were able to explain that. And in some cases, obviously, we were able to provide documentation as well. So please be aware of that situation. And therefore, make sure that you do not be on the fag end of this negative decision. What else have we got? Have we got anything else? Okay, that's it. We don't have anything else for this weekly roundup. Thank you so much for joining in. And if you are here, then please do connect with us on all the social media platforms. We are there on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. And of course, if you're looking to book a consultation, then please use this link, askkubeir.com/appointment. I'll be more than happy to discuss your application, your queries, your concerns, your strategies with you in person, or if you want to do it in virtual, then we can do that as well, of course. And at the end of the day, I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant. And of course, we do have a full-fledged, full-service immigration firm in Toronto, Canada. And if you're looking to hire a representative, then do consider us. Apparently, we're pretty good. At least that's what I would like to believe. But yes, that's basically how we are looking to roll here. Okay, questions, right? And I know there are plenty. And people who are watching us on Instagram, if you want to make yours, if you want to head over to the YouTube, because I'm able to see the questions much more clearly. On Instagram, I just can't. I'm wearing these thick glasses, and yet it's very difficult to take a look at those questions. Oh boy, that's plenty of questions. Let's see what we can do very quickly. Great job, Kubeir. First time commenting on your video. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. Okay. I'm just trying to see where we can start with these questions. All right, we'll start with these super chats here. I have started a remote job in an NGO in India as a social worker coordinator. Can I claim foreign work experience while being in Canada? I'm on a work permit. Yes, you can. There is no problem with that, as long as you're able to prove that this was, of course, a remote job. This was a genuine job. You have your employment documents. You were paid for it. Then yes, this would be a remote work experience, and you can still claim points for it, because as long as your employer, your job, your services you're providing is outside Canada, you are not entering the Canadian labor market, you're being paid for it, then you are foreign work experience and you can claim points for it. I worked in Tier 4 OINP skill in demand and 1.5 years postgraduate work permit left. My wife has done 6 months and has 3 years postgraduate work permit left. What should we do now? Very difficult for me to sit with you on a very short like live stream that I'm doing right now and talk about options. However, if your wife is doing a PSW course, your wife can then gain experience as a personal support worker, and then you can target the 31st of March home care worker pilots, when that will open once you get the job in a home care setting. As far as your Tier 4 is concerned, if you're in demand, then all I can say is wait for the Ontario streams to open, and once they open up, then you can consider those. Real estate sales representative employment requirement says provincial license required for employment. I want to claim points for foreign experience. Don't have any license as we didn't need it in India. Cannot claim. Yes, Deep Patel, if you were working as a real estate sales representative outside Canada, you don't have to worry about the employment requirements. As far as IRCC is concerned, in express entry, employment requirements are not considered when assessing your application. It has been stated very clearly on the IRCC's operational guideline. And therefore, if you don't have any license, it's not a problem. You don't need one to claim your points in express entry. Submitted spousal PR application. Spouse is in Canada on implied status, planning to apply for a work permit using AOR. Is it safe to visit while work permit is in progress? Yes, it's absolutely safe to visit. That is not an issue at all. It is just that because your spouse probably is going to be on implied status, once your spouse returns back, they will lose their implied status and they would be entering Canada as a visitor if your spouse has a TRV, and will only be able to start working once the work permit has been approved. But traveling is not a problem. On returning back to Canada, obviously you will be subject to port of entry questioning, and depending on the questions, your entry will be subject to those to the border officer being satisfied. That's the only glitch here. But apart from that, your spouse can certainly travel. I have received an ITA in education draw with a hypothetical CRS score. Wow. Why is it a hypothetical IELTS score and a number? Can I submit my documents now that I have my IELTS score? Will it be considered misrepresentation and a ban? Well, it is definitely misrepresentation because you created your express entry profile with a hypothetical score. Please bear in mind, everything that you enter in your express entry profile is recorded electronically. This is one thing which you should not do. This is something, you see, what you have done is, first of all, you would be extremely stressed even if you were to go ahead with this. Now, I would not recommend going ahead with this because there is an electronic record of your previous data that you have entered, and IRCC can always ask you. IRCC can always check on the system to see that data was incorrect, and therefore you shouldn't have received the ID in the first place. But now, by your doing what you have done, not only can you not use this technically, and of course, if you use it and if you get approved, then you're lucky. But if you don't get approved and you get caught with this, then you are at the risk. But you've also costed somebody else their idea, right? Somebody else could have received the idea, but by your step, unfortunately, even they didn't get it. And in your case, you shouldn't be going ahead with this as well. So this is something which is an absolute no-no. Using any hypothetical scores, hypothetical report numbers, whether you do it for the language or whether you do it for education, both are a big no. Shouldn't be done. And in my recommendation, you shouldn't proceed with this. If I intend to move out of Quebec, closed work permit, can I reply to P2 with address in another province? Do I have to update the address through web form after P2? Well, after P2, you don't need to update IRCC, but if you have moved out or if you do intend to move. So it is not about intend to move out. It is about after having moved out, because they are asking you for your physical address. If you haven't actually moved out, you can't really give them a new physical address. So therefore, please be aware of that situation and always, provide correct information on that aspect. I don't know which weeks I have worked less than 30 hours, but completed 1560 hours in 1 year. Counted from bi-weekly pay stub with caped, I don't know what you mean by caped hours. How to figure it out if I'm safe for each week need to 30 hours? Well, if you do not have a description of each week, but your bi-weekly says 60 hours or more, then you can still claim 60 hours or more bi-weekly. And if your pay stubs are matching up and they're all adding up, then you should be fine. It's not an issue. You can always also check your T4s. In your T4s also, you should be able to identify. You can also ask your employer to give it in writing what were your average or your weekly hours. And if there is no bifurcation of weekly hours, but your bi-weekly is showing 60 hours, then you should be fine with this. Do you think Francophone Mobility Program might continue with the CLB5 requirement post June 30th? Also, 496 might have chance, work permit expiring February. Well, I think yes, CLB5 may continue post 30th of June. It was first launched in 2021, I think, when the requirement was CLB7 and the tier code for the job had to be 0123. Then in June 2023, they changed it and they said, okay, we will now accept CLB5, and then there is no category requirement. Now that we are coming to the expiry of this Francophone mobility program, the extension would, I certainly feel there would be an extension for sure, but there might be some changes to the program. There could be a changes to because at the end of the day, they are still looking to encourage Francophone immigration, as in the number of people who speak French outside Quebec. And at the same point of time, they're also trying to cut down on the temporary resident number. So they're both contradicting each other. So we might see the extension for sure, but there might also be a possibility that there could be some changes to the requirements as well. I think the language might stay. There could be changes to the job requirements. I have open work permit because of the war that happened in Lebanon later last year. Now the war has ended. Can I visit Lebanon and come back without facing issues like cancellation of work permit? So your work permit was given to you because of the situation back in the country. However, there is no restriction for you to travel in and out. Those restrictions are only if you are filing cases of asylum or refugees. This has got nothing to do with you. So you are on an open work permit. If you have a valid TRV, you can certainly travel out of the country and return back. There is no problem in this situation. Your work permit doesn't get cancelled because you travel back to the country. Got my COPR on the 8th of April, but still haven't received my card. You mean the PR card? Cross processing time as well, and no one is giving an update. Should I be worried? No, please don't be worried. It's quite normal for PR cards to be delayed. Also, we are expecting some Canada Post strike, and with that, they could be further be delayed. You can raise a web form and request for in-person PR card delivery. You can also call IRCC and check on the status of the PR card. You can also link the PR card to your GC key to see when it gets processed. These are all the ways to figure out what is happening with your PR card. I'm from India, just got the PR. Very good, congratulations. Can I return to India after landing in Canada before getting my PR card? Can my brother bring it for me later on when he travels to India? Will there be any issues? The answer to all these questions is yes. You can go back to India, no problem, without your PR card. Your brother, once the PR card is delivered, can carry it for you, and there are no issues whatsoever. Applied for work permit extension, which was refused. Within restoration period, can I apply or submit my PR application if I have received the ITA? And afterwards, can I apply for bridging work permit? The answer to question is yes. If you are within your restoration period and your previous status was a worker, after you have gotten an ITA and you have submitted your PR application, within that 90 days of the refusal period, you are still eligible to apply for restoration, and you can restore your status and apply for a bridge open work permit. It's acceptable. It is mentioned on the IRCC website under the bridge open work permit conditions that if you are within the restoration period and you can restore your status to a worker, then you can still apply for bridge work permit. PR applied in non-express entry pathway when nomination was valid. Currently, it is expired. Will it impact my application? Why delay in AOR? If you have already submitted your application when the nomination was valid, and even if it has expired now, it is not a problem. Your application will continue. The delay in AOR is because there is an overall delay in the application processing. Currently, the application processing is nearly 24 months. So it's pretty much balanced out that the delays are there in AORs as well. If I apply for fake work permit extension, meanwhile I received an ITA while pending decision, can I cancel the extension application and submit my new bridge work permit? Uh, the reason why you have implied status is because of your fake extension. If you cancel, if you withdraw your fake extension, you no longer have an implied status. And while you may still be able to apply for bridge work permit, depending on what the condition here is, there are so many unknowns that I would need to understand first, but you will no longer be on implied status, and therefore you can no longer work until your bridge work permit is approved. COPR received waiting for card. Can I remove the funds? Yes, you can. No problem. If you have your eCOPR, means you are already a permanent resident and you can do whatever you want to do with your funds. That was the reason why you were supposed to have the funds in the first place. If the bank refuses to mention my loan debt information on the letter, does submitting credit card statements, credit bureau report suffices? I have received second ADR for proof of funds. Can you review my proof of fund documents? Rohit, yes, we can review your proof of fund documents. You're more than welcome to book a consultation or book a document review service with us. And as far as your proof of funds is concerned, I'm quite surprised the bank will not give you your loan debt information, because all the banks will, on request, provide what is your outstanding loan or outstanding debt with the bank. So I'm not sure why the bank is refusing to provide that. But if your loan or debt is only your credit card statement, then yes, you can provide your most recent credit card statement, and that would also work. What is more important is for you to be able to explain in your response to IRCC, how are you looking to cover that debt from your proof of funds, so that your proof of funds are not impacted. So you'll have to give them a payment plan. You have to give them some sort of a payment structure or additional funds to show that the debt is covered and that it does not impact your proof of funds for your settlement in Canada. That's their condition. Part-time job enough for PGWP holder to apply for spouse open work permit? Yes, part-time work is absolutely fine. No issues there. PNP non-express entry ADR for PCC for non-accompanying spouse have received PAL on 15th of Jan. Since then, we have separated. I don't know what you mean by PAL here. And updated IRCC with divorce petition. Shall I upload the PCC to address the ADR, or petition copy is sufficient? ADR for PCC of non-accompanying spouse have received PAL. I don't know what you mean by PAL here. Since we have separated and updated IRCC with divorce petition, shall I update the PCC to address the ADR? Well, if you have the PCC, brilliant, provide it. If you don't have the PCC, then provide a detailed explanation as to why you can't provide the PCC, including the fact that your spouse is, that you are separated and that you are undergoing a divorce. Provide the copy of the petition, and obviously, provide and update your civil status or marital status with IRCC as well. But if you have the PCC, provide that as well and let them know about your updated change of status. Nothing here. Can we do remote job for an Indian employer while we are on study permit or visitor record? Can that experience be counted as foreign work experience? Well, can you do a remote job? Yes, you can. But while you are on a study permit, that work experience doesn't count, because it has been very clearly stated on the IRCC website. But if you are in Canada on a visitor record and working for a remote employer, that experience counts as a remote foreign work experience. Can I claim 1 year NOCB work experience if I have certificate of qualification? Yes, you can. I mean, those are both unrelated. To claim work experience, you should have work experience. To claim points for certificate of qualification, you should have a certificate of qualification. Both are unrelated. I got an ITA in education category, applied as non-accompanying spouse, as it doesn't have ECA and IELTS, currently on implied status for work permit extension. How can I logically explain it to IRCC? We came together in Canada and he's on tier 4 job. Well, if your spouse is unaccompanying, you have to have a better reason than to say that he just doesn't have ECA and IELTS and my scores are low. That's the whole point. The point is that you cannot be saying that your spouse is not accompanying you, but at the same point of time, applying for the spouse's work permit extension. And that is where the issue is. At this point of time, I don't think you need to do anything. If at all IRCC will ask, then you have to explain. And I cannot tell you how can you logically explain. The reason why your spouse is not accompanying has to come from you. I cannot give you the reason why your spouse is not accompanying you. And you have to be able to establish the reasons, provided with supporting documents if needed. and explain the situation. In your case, it seems that you've gotten an ITA, you haven't submitted an application. Well, then you have to be able to explain to IRCC why is it that your spouse will not be accompanying you. And as I have stated earlier, and based on the recent ongoing issues with IRCC stating that your spouse will not accompany you because you want to improve your CRS score, that may raise a concern or a PFL. So be aware of that and be ready to explain if required. But at this point of time, if your spouse is not accompanying you for a reason other than improving your CRS score, that is the reason that you have to provide. ITA 5th Feb, AOR 10th Feb, ECOPR 29th April. Wow, congratulations, Rohit. This was express entry. Well done. Well done. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. We have an Ontario MS. I'm assuming that's a master's degree you're talking about. My wife is a physician. We are 40. Which PR streams are best for us? Family TRV application till 8 months. How to expedite? Well, Palash, I cannot give you all these answers in this live stream that we are doing. We need to do a much more better review. I would recommend to book a consultation. But when you say we have an Ontario MS, and I'm assuming it's a master's degree, then master's stream might be a good idea to wait for. Other than that, please explore other options in terms of job offers. Because you're 40, your express entry scores are going to be low unless you have work experience in a category. You said your wife is a physician, so obviously that's a healthcare category. Gain 1 year of Canadian work experience, have a good express entry CRS score, and then healthcare might be a good option as well. And your TRV application is still 8 months. How to expedite? There is no way to expedite. You can raise a web form. You can let them know what the reason for expediting it is, but there is no specific format to expedite. CRS score of 516. Manitoba score of 865, have 3 years of experience. At my current score, permit is expiring in French. Permit is expiring in November. Start French or wait, CEC likely. Okay, guys, when you're asking me these questions, I will not be able to do it for you in this short space of time. Each of these questions that you're asking will take a very detailed review and to go through different options and to give you an answer, which, to be very honest, on a live stream, when I'm trying to rush through the questions and not have more than few seconds to allocate for each question, I can't possibly answer that question for you. However, 516 is a good score. Manitoba score that you have of 865 is also a great score. At this point of time, I think you can afford to wait to see if the CRS scores or rather the CEC draws will continue and then take a call maybe a few months later. 2 years work experience as a finance manager with pay of 100K plus. Okay, nice. Can I get LMIA with the current employer? Well, the question should be to your employer. Ask your employer if the employer is willing to give you the LMIA. If the employer is willing to support you, then definitely ask for them to process an LMIA. But again, your score is 516, and I think 516 is a good score. And in my opinion, 516 should get cleared out in the next few draws. So it's just a matter of waiting it out a bit. Maybe a couple of months should give you a good idea. I resigned and serving notice. Will this affect my non-express entry for Saskatchewan OID? Haven't informed Saskatchewan or IRCC. Now, you are in OID. I do not know if you have taken points for the job offer. If you did take points for the job offer, then your application may be impacted. So please be aware of that situation. Chances of ITA with 511 score in next 2 to 3 months, I would say positive chances. Again, depends on IRCC if they choose to conduct the score draws or not, or how frequently or how many invitations. Can we do real estate license course while on postgraduate work permit? I think yes, you can. I think it's mostly online. So as long as you're studying online, it's not a problem. And yeah, I think you just have to attend some exams, right? So that's the only thing required there. But it's better to always check with the regulatory body rather than anybody else. But I mean, that is because of your status in Canada as a postgraduate work permit holder. But other than that, I don't see any issue here. Ontario already conducted 133% more ITAs over the past couple of years. What do you think? Is there any draw this year or not? If yes, will they focus on OINP EE or non-EE? Well, I can't tell you what they will focus on because that is entirely Ontario's decision. And you are right, they did conduct a lot of draws. They did send out a lot of invitations. But it is also true that not all people accept all the ITAs. For example, a lot of people who get invited under the master's graduate stream, they eventually choose not to proceed with it because they get an ITA in express entry. Similarly, people who get invitations under the human capital priority stream, a lot of them eventually realize that they were not eligible in the stream in the first place. So there are always those people who drop out. But yes, at this point of time, I think one of the reasons why Ontario is not conducting the draws is that they are holding back because to process their inventory from the previous years. And what kind of draws they will focus on, there is no way to say. I think if and when they do start, they will probably be focusing more on priority occupations, as by and large, that has been the mainstream call throughout in all programs in all provinces. PCC issued on 20th of May, came to Dubai on tourist visa. If I get an ITA while I'm in Dubai, can I apply PR while being in Dubai using my Indian issued PCC, or I have to apply again? Well, it all depends on your country of residence. If India is no longer your country of residence, then you will have to apply for PCC from outside India. That is very important. Currently sitting at 479, do you think there are any chances for healthcare draw happening below this score before November 2026? You're asking me too many predictions to make, which I can't. I don't have that kind of information. First of all, as to how many people are there in the pool with the score of more than 479, in the sense of who are in healthcare. Then I also do not know until November 2026, which is like a year and a half from now, what all draws and how many categories. So everything is speculative, and there is no way for me to predict. The last healthcare draw was at 510, which tells you how the pool is flooded with healthcare candidates. Bear in mind, lots of the candidates who are inside Canada, who completed the PSW courses, who completed 6 months of work experience as nursing aides and orderlies, they are now flooding the pool with very high scores. And therefore, 479 might be a bit of stretch. It will all depend on how many invitations IRCC issues. So the more the invitations, the better the scores. Is it mandatory to show strong harm ties for spouse open work permit extension, even though primary applicant has a tier 1 job? No, not really. If the applicant is already in Canada, then the strong home ties is not a very big requirement because you're already inside Canada. But do explain that your intention is to return back to your home country, because that is the requirement for all temporary residence applications. Can I do remote job for outside Canada company while working inside Canada as well? I will claim points for remote job only at the same year. The answer is yes. You can work in Canada, outside Canada, it doesn't matter, but you can only claim one experience at one point of time. And therefore, yes, you can have a remote work experience and you can work for the employer outside Canada. No problem. Nothing here and nothing here. Okay, we are now running out of time very quickly. Can 5 months of paid internship from India be counted under foreign work experience? Showed that experience during study permit with certificate of completion, no job duties mentioned in it. Yes, if it is a paid internship, IRCC has very clearly stated on their website that it can be counted as work experience. It's not a problem. I've been working for a Canadian employer for 2 years and recently started remote work for an Indian employer from Canada. Can I claim points for both or just foreign? Well, you can claim points for only one period of work experience at a given point of time. You cannot double dip. You cannot have at the same point of time Canadian experience and foreign work experience. So you will have to choose which one do you want to claim. I'm at a score of 544 in CEC and my postgraduate work permit is expiring on June 12th. If I don't get an ITA before June 12th, is there any way I can start, if I can continue working? The only time you can continue working is if you have made an application for a work permit. Speak to your employer and see if they can support you. But with a score of 544, there's a very high possibility you might get invited soon. And if that happens, be ready to submit your application so that you can apply for a bridge open work permit immediately and therefore be on implied status and continue working. What is the most scoring English test you see? I don't understand the question. I'm not sure what you mean by the most scoring English test. Well, IRCC accepts IELTS, they accept PT Core, they accept CELPIP, and choose any of these wherever you're comfortable and do the best you can. Finished masters in Ontario, but recently got job in Montreal, had to move. Can I still apply for Ontario masters stream? showing my Ontario address, or it's better to find job in Ontario. Now, what you're asking me is also called misrepresentation. When you say I will apply for Ontario Master Stream showing my Ontario address, means you're trying to mislead the officer into believing that you live in Ontario, and therefore misrepresentation. Please don't do that. There is nothing that says that you can't be living in Montreal and making an application for Ontario Masters Stream. There's nothing in the law there. However, your intention to live and work, live in Ontario should be strong, and that is what you should be basing your application on. Please do not try to mislead the officer. If it is identified that you are lying, then you will get caught, and then that would not be nice. So don't opt for ways to work around or circumvent. Instead, be truthful and follow the program guideline. Program guideline is very clear. It doesn't say that you can't be in Montreal. It simply says that your intention should be to live and reside in Ontario. So work on that. Can I apply for Bridge Open Work Permit if I receive an ITA while I'm on implied status work permit extension? Yes, Umar, you can do that. There's no problem with that. Can I submit Ontario address at P2 if I get a lease after P1 while living in Quebec? Again, incorrect way to provide information. If you are not living in Ontario, you cannot say you are living or that is your address. Having a lease does not mean that is your address. Your address is where you live. So please maintain truthfulness in your application. Just got approved for a vulnerable worker 1 year open work permit, but I have already traveled out of Canada and TRV expired. How do I get back to Canada fast? You will have to apply for TRV online along with the explanation that you have a work permit. There is no such thing as doing this fast. You cannot expedite. You can only request IRCC to give you the TRV sooner. Applied for fake work permit extension, later got Saskatchewan, but fake extension was declined. Applied for restoration and work permit. Can she continue working? Absolutely not. You cannot work once your work permit extension was declined, because then you were out of status. And even if you were on status, you were out of status because you applied for restoration. Once you're out of status, you don't get implied status. Rather, you don't get any status at all. You have applied for restoration. Means you're a person right now who is out of status, and you definitely cannot work. My spouse's employer is ready to apply for high-wage LMIA. Processing time is 60 days. Can he apply for closed work permit before that? No, you cannot. You can apply for a work permit only after you have an LMIA. Now, you can make an application saying that your LMIA is in process once your LMIA has been applied for, and then it depends on IRCC whether they will wait or they will process without it. Applied to P2 on May 20th, waiting for ECOPR, work permit expiring on July 21st. Should I apply for Bridge Open Work Permit right now or wait for ECOPR until July 10th? Wait until July 10th, and then you can apply for your Bridge Open Work Permit so you can continue working. So yeah, that's what you can do. What all documents should I need for foreign work experience proof? I have 1 year as bookkeeper in India. You will need your employment reference letters, pay stubs, bank statements, income tax returns. That is what you will need. P2 non-express entry, waiting for ECOPR. I got married in December 24, requested to add spouse. No update till now. Would you suggest to apply for visitor visa for spouse with the current processing time? Yes, please do apply for your spouse's visit visa. If you have a work permit in Canada valid for another 16 months and you work in tier, you don't even be working. You can apply for a Bridge Open Work Permit for yourself as well and apply for a work permit for your spouse. And yeah, that's basically, and of course follow up with IRCC to add your spouse to your application. Very important. That is something which you should be doing anyways. Nothing here. Real estate is self-study online, maximum 24 months. Yes, if it is self-study, if it is online, you can study. There is no problem. That's not an issue. You can give your exams for real estate on a postgraduate work permit. Yeah, just confirm with the regulatory body whether they will accept your exam while you are on a postgraduate work permit status. That's the only thing I'm not sure about. Got my visitor's record. Should I send it as a web form to IRCC, as my wife applied for restoration for me as she was applying for a study permit? Got my visitor. Should I send it as a web form to IRCC? You don't need to send it to IRCC as a web form because they are the ones who has issued, so they definitely should know. But if you want to send it, by all means do. It's not a problem per se. Was on postgraduate work permit applied extension which got refused, 90 days restoration period for visitor record which has decision pending. If I apply for PR and I got AOR, can I apply for Bridge Open Work Permit? You cannot apply for Bridge Open Work Permit because you have already applied for a visitor record during the restoration period. If that 90 days restoration period is still valid before at the time you get your AOR, then you may apply for Bridge Open Work Permit and withdraw your visitor record extension application. Okay, guys, please don't do any more super chats. I can't get through these questions and I need to log out now. Is OINP International Student Stream? Can I file a voluntary income tax of 40,000 to gain additional points? So you can't do a voluntary income tax return. You should have made that kind of money. Ontario can always ask you for proof of income for the previous year. So while tax returns are required, but so can Ontario always ask you for additional proof of income. So please, yeah, if you've made the income, of course, file your taxes. What ITA already submitted PR application? How to submit a letter of explanation via web form after submitting a PR application? Do you have any YouTube videos on that? I do have a YouTube videos on doing a web form, but you don't really need one. Just Google IRCC web form, enter the information about your application, explain briefly what you're trying to do, and then add your letter of explanation as a document and submit. That's all. I see him as COPR on IRCC tracker. GC case says final decision. No update. Alberta non-express entry. Yeah, I know it. You will see a final decision and COPR tracker, which is congratulations for you. And it will take time. They will not issue your P1s or your, in your case, I'm not sure whether it's inside Canada or outside Canada or your PPR. It will take time. They will do it only as a batch release when they want to make a final decision. So it may take time, as is being seen right now. Can you explain traveling during implied status? CIC website says it is allowed. I'm working. My study permit was valid during coming and to go back. I do not know what you mean here, but traveling during implied status means that you can travel. You can return back to Canada if you have a TRV. Once you leave Canada, you lose your implied status. Once you return back to Canada, you are coming back as a visitor until your work permit or your any permit that you've applied for is approved. Once it is approved, then you can work. That is the only difference. The only exception is for postgraduate work permits. So if you apply for a postgraduate work permit, you leave Canada, you return back, you can still work. But otherwise, in all other cases, you lose your implied status once you leave Canada. Started work on 10th of July in Alberta when creating e-profile. When can I say I have 1 year of work experience in Canada? On the 9th of July. That is the time when you will complete your 1 year of work experience. Yes, you can make your express entry profile earlier, but if you are going to be saying that you have completed 1 year of work experience, that will only be on the 9th of July. Renew my passport, have tier 2, need to extend, current work permit expires, I still have 20 months left, my passport. Will it affect spouse open work permit extension after Jan 21 rule? If you are going to be making any kind of an application for your spouse open work permit now, Jan 21 rule will apply to you for sure. So your work permit has to be valid for at least 16 months and you should be working in tier category 0 or 1. LMIA result isn't out, but before IRCC refuses work permit, but I also leave the country before that, will I be considered out of status? If you leave the country, if you leave Canada, then you are no longer out of status because only if you are in Canada is your status relevant. So that's how it works. PCC dated, guys, don't do super chats. I will just not be able to finish the questions. PCC dated 20th of May. What is the validity of PCC? I'm in Canada. I have to renew passport. Do I need to get new PCC after renewal? PCC will, if the PCC was applied for while you were outside your home country, whichever country this is for, then it remains valid until your next visit to that country. So even if you apply for a new passport, you don't need to apply for new PCC. You will apply for new PCC only if you revisit that country, provided your first PCC was issued after your last visit to that country. Will I maintain status and can continue working even if I apply for Bridge Open Work Permit 5 days before expiry of work permit? Yes, Isha, if you apply for your work permit and if you're an implied status, you can continue working and the status is maintained. What is the most common English test your clients give? My clients will give all kinds of English tests wherever they can score very well. They will use CELPIP, they will use IELTS, they will use PTE Core. There is no one size fits all. Any test where people are able to score high, they will use that. I applied postgraduate work permit extension due to passport expiry on 17th April, but since then haven't heard back from IRCC, not even application number. What should I do? Well, nothing. paper applications take a long time and you can't really do anything. As long as you have a tracking number and tracking record that your application was delivered to IRCC, you are good. Other than that, there is nothing to be done, nothing you can do. Just wait. Last question, related previously asked, non-express entry PNP having no update, only 12 months of work permit remaining. Should I wait or proceed with visitor visa for my spouse with current visitor visa rejection rate? You can apply for visitor visa. Your work permit validity has got nothing to do with your visitor visa application. Apply for your spouse's visitor visa and also express dual intent by stating that you've already applied for PR and you've already added your spouse to your PR application. So the actual intent is to live in Canada permanently, but meanwhile, your spouse would like to visit you because of the fact that you guys are married and you want to continue, that it is good for your relationship, it's good for your mental health, and therefore you would like to apply for a visit visa in the meanwhile. So express dual intent and make an application. Wow, it was a big, long one today. Thank you so much for joining in, guys. It was a pleasure doing it. Pleasure answering your questions. We shall do it again. Until such time, stay forever hopeful, and I shall see you on the other side. Take care.